Dele, lots of dough, looks interesting and wavy when it first arrives in your local area, but closes down too soon due to unforeseen circumstances. And that's just the footballer. When Dele Alli arrived on the scene at Tottenham in the Premier League, he looked like he could genuinely develop into one of the best midfielders in the world. Technical, game-changing, and all-round brilliant.
Ali, great skill.
But for a man who sits down at Christmas dinner with Pep Guardiola, I can't lie to you, Pep, your daughter's leng. Just pass me the pigs in blankets, you little shit. Things have fallen away completely. Dele Alli's tale is one of talent and tragedy. But all things considered, he should be proud. And here's why. But you shouldn't be proud if you're not subscribed to this here channel. Currently, the task is that I've got to get a Liverpool tattoo when we hit 800,000 subscribers. And I will sell my body for this. Pause.
What is going on here?
So if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe. And do not worry, a 750k video is in the works. I will 100% be bringing that to your screens in the next few weeks. Now for Dele Alli, it's been another very difficult couple of weeks. He's been told by his Serie A side, FC Como, that he's not going to be needed for the new season. He's surplus to requirements and they're looking to move him on. He's been asked to train separately away from the first team as well. This, of course, after a brutal few years, ending his time at Spurs, a spell at Everton and Besiktas, and generally speaking, struggling to get any game time. This football club is sponsored by Uber. They got him an XL straight out of there. Not even an Uber Lux with all the money they've got, which I personally wouldn't have if I was him. And they gave him a 1-star rating on the way out. It's a real shame. Just gonna let you know right now, mate, I ain't even got a driving license, so this could go. To be fair to the lad, Como as an area, one of the better places to have to go and train somewhere on your own. He'll be upset at the fact that he's not getting any game time before realizing he can just stare at Lake Como all day. Poor Harry Winks, his former Tottenham teammate, has to put up with living in Leicester for fuck's sake. Eric Dyer's in Monaco, Dele Alli's in Como, Harry Winks is in shithole. He's in a bad place. Not mentally, he's just in the East Midlands. But let's be honest, Dele Alli doesn't want to be swimming in the hot waters of Italy. He's been in enough hot water during his career. He wants to get back to playing football. And that footballing journey started all the way back at MK Dons. He joined the club at 11 and made his debut early. An FA Cup tie against non-league Cambridge City. And not only that, but he scored his first goal for the club just 11 days later in a replay of the same FA Cup tie. He scored hat-tricks in the Football League in his 2 full seasons and was clearly far too good for his division. He was even involved in an iconic now MK Dons victory 4-0 against Manchester United in the Cup. The good news was that this was an environment where he was able to shine and thrive and really look comfortably one of the better players in the league. The bad news was that he had to live in Milton Keynes.
Get me out of this shithole!
Next, though, he'd finally be free from the shackles of a terrible area like Milton Keynes and be able to make a big money move to the Premier League and live in an area like Tottenham. Jesus fucking Christ, this guy can't catch a break. Now, we all know what happened from there. Breakout season immediately. He took to the Premier League so unbelievably easily, making an immediate Bluetooth connection to Harry Kane.
The Bluetooth device is connected successfully.
The partnership they were able to build in such a short space of time, yet another young player breaking through at that moment was incredible. Extreme gooner Harold Kane had escaped Arsenal's youth academy and was finding a new home elsewhere in North London. Harry scoring at a crazy rate and Dele scoring absolute beauties, including that goal against Crystal Palace. It would earn him goal of the season and Spurs were on an absolute tear. However, we've got to remember that this is Tottenham and that they would find some way to fuck things up completely. A young and inexperienced ultimately side would falter towards the end of the campaign. They'd be involved in the first ever UFC match to take place inside a football stadium and would finish 3rd in a 2-horse title race in a chaotic season behind eventual miraculous title winners Leicester City.
Bros.
Maybe that City ain't that bad after all. But the crucial thing is Dele Alli had still performed and he'd done it much earlier than predicted. During his time at MK Dons and even for that famous game against Manchester United, scouts from all across Europe, the likes of Liverpool, Bayern Munich, Manchester United themselves, had been chasing his signature. But it was for a future move. This guy, the very next season, had lit up the Premier League, grabbing 10 goals, 10 assists, and scooping the PFA Young Player of the Year award, as well as appearing in the Premier League Team of the Year. He then made his England debut and scored an absolute banger against the Pana Chocolat 11. But things were about to get even better into the 2016-17 season. This was his absolute peak. And this realistically was Tottenham's absolute peak as well. They once again massively improved under Maurizio Pochettino, a young and exciting squad of kind of new names, the likes of Harry Kane, the likes of Dele Alli, performances from Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld, Christian Eriksen in midfield. A young Heung-min Son was just starting to break through into their side and Kyle Walker at right back, amongst arguably the greatest footballer of all time, according to Twitter, in Moussa Dembele, Spurs picked up 86 points across the Premier League season, easily their best ever, only for Chelsea to be the class of the field and accumulate 93 themselves. They finished second this time in the Prem, but the signs were there and it was only a matter of time until trophies and silverware were around the corner for Tottenham. For Dele Alli personally, not quite as many flamboyant goals, but far more of them than the season before. His output was incredible. He was always techie inside the area, arriving at the right place at the right time, very clinical in terms of a finisher, decent with his head as well. He grabbed 22 goals and 13 assists in all competitions, once again got into the team of the year, and for the first time since Wayne Rooney won Young Player of the Year for a second consecutive season. And the reason I'm saying all of this and I'm going through his career like this is I think sometimes, whilst we, attribute Dele Alli as being, a wonder kid, or at this point, unfortunately, a failed wonder kid, I think we actually forget, like, the gravity of how good he actually was during the first 2 seasons at Spurs. That 15-16 season into 16-17 season was absolutely mental. His 3rd season at White Hart Lane, or I think actually at this point they'd moved to Wembley, was not quite the same heights as the season before, I'm not gonna lie. His performances were a little bit more sporadic. They finished 3rd this time in the league, behind Manchester United and a Centurion Man City. He still grabbed 9 goals and 10 assists in the league, and grabbed a beauty of a brace against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, as Tottenham grabbed the win at the home of the Blues for the first time in like 25 years.
Fuck Chelsea, what?
But after the World Cup of 2018, there seemed to be a significant shift. The 18-19 season was riddled with hamstring injuries. As soon as he was back with one, he was out with another one. Him and De Physio were on each other's Christmas card list at this point in time. Spurs would make it to a historic Champions League final regardless though, after Dele himself set up the final goal for Lucas Moura in an incredible turnaround versus Ajax. Of course, Spurs would end up being defeated by Liverpool, and then things changed for the worse again. Tottenham went on this weird run of refusing to sign any footballers after Daniel Levy chose to pump all of his transfer funds into a failed hair transplant attempt. 2 back-to-back transfer windows of absolutely no strengthening whatsoever, and key players leaving meant that Spurs were just weakened. The side around Dele Alli didn't get significantly worse, but was definitely not as strong as it had been in the build-up to the Champions League and when they finished 2nd in the Prem. We saw sparks of Dele Alli being good again in the 2019-20 season. A beautiful little flick over a defender and finish against Manchester United, but it was also the end of Maurizio Pochettino, replaced by Jose Mourinho, who would give him some freedom at first, playing him a little bit further forward, and that worked with an uptake in goals. But post-COVID, his relationship with Jose Mourinho completely fell apart, and the famous quote in Spurs' documentary All or Nothing, where Jose warned Dele Alli that, football can be over in an instant. Doesn't matter how much promise you have as a youngster, things can fall apart and you're not the same footballer.
I want just to tell you that I think you will regret.
It looked like those concerns were coming to fruition. He could be seen tearing down the Jose Mourinho posters in his own bedroom. He'd barely feature, he did suffer with injuries as well, but by February he'd played 75 minutes in the Prem, and he'd only play a full 90 minutes once in May. For 21-22, Jose Mourinho was out, replaced by Nuno Espirito Santo, who'd been sacked by the time that it had taken me to finish that previous sentence. Antonio Conte was now in and had already been put off when he saw Dele Alli's trim. He said, "Nah, chief, you're good," and then put him up for sale that January. He had absolutely no idea why Dele was preparing to come off the bench in important matches.
What are you doing? Sorry.
And whenever the poor kid was injured, he was probably there with him in the physio room, making the injury significantly worse. The feeling at this point was that this was down to a lack of desire, a lack of hunger, and even a lack of work ethic due to how Dele had been portrayed in the Spurs documentary that I mentioned a moment ago. But it was a chance for him to right those wrongs as he headed over to Everton for free. He just missed Carlo Ancelotti's managerial spell at the club and missed James Rodriguez's conversion surgery, but I don't think Carlo Ancelotti's eyebrow would have been able to save this one. It was once again a bit of a disaster. He couldn't get a run of form or fitness together, but to be fair to him, I too wouldn't have turned up for work if I'd have arrived there and seen Michael Keane playing at centre-back.
I'm rapidly falling out of love with football.
Honestly, what's the point, realistically? It was an ageing squad at Everton, much to the dismay of Gylfi Sigurdsson. Realistically, unfortunately, it was never really going to be a situation where he could thrive again, unless he was going to come in on top form and become the main man, like James Rodriguez had done when he first joined Everton himself. He'd then get loaned out to Besiktas in Turkey for the next season in 2023, even for that to go even worse. Senol Gunes, be careful with that name, you'll get banned in the UK these days, took charge of the club in October and said that he was pretty disappointed with Dele's efficiency. Now, if there's one set of fans you don't want to provoke, Almost got it. Now, if there's one set of fans you don't want to provoke, it's Turkish ones. They'll have you castrated and underrun in 47 different provinces if you have a pass accuracy below 75%. These lot just do not take any shit. He was booed off in a game for the club and in the end returned back to Everton with a hip injury. A spell at Italian side FC Como, though, would be even more luckless as he made his debut, then got sent off immediately after a rash challenge on Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Himself and the victim, Loftus-Cheek in this case, agreed that it was a bit of a harsh red, but he would never be seen again until this summer, where he was told that he could pack his bags. Now, obviously, up to this point, this is all on the pitch football stuff, but underneath the surface and in Dele's personal life, there was, of course, far more going on. Now, it's been well documented up to this point after his interview with Gary Neville on The Overlap, but of course, trigger warning, we are going to talk about SA, drug addiction, general violence as well. Dele basically confirmed in an interview to Gary Neville that he'd had an extremely tough childhood, growing up being the victim of sexual abuse or sexual assault at the age of like 6. He'd been around alcohol addiction in the form of his mum and drug addiction in terms of just the general area before becoming a drug dealer and smoking at the age of 8, and had been the victim of general violence all the way through his childhood before being moved to Africa to learn discipline with his dad, who was never really at any point actually active within his life until he became a professional footballer, at which point his dad tried to re-enter. Now, this was, like, honestly, an absolutely outrageous amount of trauma to go through as a child, and he mentioned at various points during the interview that he kind of struggled emotionally to deal with a lot of things, as in to feel emotion, and I can't imagine, A, how any of that feels, but B, how you can really have emotion for a lot of things because you've already experienced such an extreme amount and such an extreme set of circumstances. You are naturally going to feel numb to a lot of things that happen in your personal life, and that is going to have an impact on how you live your day-to-day life, even if you become this incredible footballer and reach the peak of your powers. Now, obviously, there was an outpouring of emotion and support for Dele when he'd admitted that all this stuff had happened, because A, you know, it takes incredible strength to be the victim of things like that and be open enough and brave enough to actually talk about it. You know, he'd been through therapy, generally speaking, to some degree at least, healed from it, and now, you know, the next step is actually being able to talk about it and inspire, you know, similar people who have gone through similar situations to speak up about their experiences as well. But in all honesty, it had actually come too late for Dele himself. A lot of people had already branded him as this lazy character during the likes of 2019 and 2020, to the point where, whilst nobody knew what was going on, he was now struggling to deal with himself as a footballer. Ironically, Jose Mourinho, who talked about him being lazy in the documentary, apparently apologized to Dele one-on-one, but that was never shown in the documentary itself. So this actual idea and this image that we were given of Dele wasn't even believed by Jose Mourinho, the man who kind of started it inadvertently, like a week later. And I think, to me anyway, it revealed that obviously, you know, childhood trauma had a massive impact on his life, but also on his footballing habits. And ultimately, we ended up with the conclusion that, you know, his childhood trauma had a massive impact on how he would lead his life at the peak of his game, right? Because it's all well and good being an amazing footballer, but if you can't, like, deal with emotional situations, and if you're acting out aspects of your life, which, you know, he suggested that he did to Gary Neville, where he was having a lot of house parties and having a lot of people around him, maybe distracting him a lot of the time, not because he wanted to be this party animal, not because he wanted to just go out and drink and he didn't care about being a footballer, but because he thought that was normal. That was what he grew up with around him in Milton Keynes as a kid. His image of normal life was completely distorted by his experience as a youngster, and that's not really something that you can blame him for. It also led to him falling out of love and not having the same hunger that he once did for football. At the age of 24, asking himself whether he wanted to retire. So you've got all this stuff going on in his personal life that's, you know, creating maybe a bad environment for him to focus on his football, but then he doesn't even want to play the football either. And that's why he really started to drop off in terms of performances, in my opinion. Dele Alli's game revolved around hunger. It was finding himself in these random pockets in the area and being efficient in front of goal. He wasn't like the maddest worker. He wasn't running around getting 18 kilometers per 90 minutes as a run time, but he was working hard to impact a game in a moment. He was never a midfielder that would dictate the tempo of a game or constantly have a hand in it, but you knew that if the game was going to be won, he would have a hand in that. So once that hunger went away, the efficiency, the goal contributions disappeared as well. Ultimately for Dele Alli, it's going to be about bringing that back. He just has to go somewhere where he's going to actually enjoy playing football again. He also has to get lucky. His injury record between 2019 and 2024, to be honest with you, was absolutely horrific. Like, the amount of times this guy was out injured was crazy. It's probably overlooked because of of everything else that's gone on with Dele Alli, but it was a pretty difficult run for him to stay fit. So he needs to be able to stay fit. He needs to be able to enjoy his football. Honestly, wherever at this point, it really doesn't matter. He could go play for MK Dons again if he wanted to. He just needs to find that feeling of enjoying himself and that hunger for playing football. The reality is Dele Alli could have been one of the best midfielders in the world. So that's if you put him in the perfect scenario. But honestly, given his upbringing and his experiences, for me, Dele Alli is actually one of the biggest success stories that English football has had to offer. This is a kid who very, extremely easily could have ended up in a life of crime or a life of addiction, never really making it out of the household that shackled him down for such a long time, and never making it out of a lifestyle that kills so many young people. The reality is that Dele was able to bring joy to Tottenham fans, even if it was for 3-4 years max, put himself in a position where he's able to provide for his family probably for the rest of his life, and get enjoyment out of doing something that he loves, even if for a short period of time, after a childhood that was so difficult to navigate. Football saved Dele Alli. And for being able to put in the performances that he did, given the circumstances, in my opinion, despite it not being as great as it could be, whether his mentality was as strong as it could have been at certain points in his career, life is still bigger than football, and I think he can be extremely proud. I hope that he's able to find a footballing career from this point moving onwards, whether it be somewhere else in the game outside of playing football, or whether he can just go somewhere, anywhere, and actually enjoy himself again on the football pitch. For me, that's the main thing. Maybe I'm being a little bit lenient. He could have been one of the best midfielders in the world, and it makes me sad that he isn't and isn't going to be. But like I said, I think he can still be proud of what he's achieved up to this point, given everything that he's gone through. But what do you make of Dele Alli's career? What were the heights, all things considered? What could he have achieved for England as well and for Tottenham? Drop it down below. If there's any other footballers or, football clubs that you want me to make a video about at the moment, I'm really enjoying the way the channel's going at the moment, then make sure to drop that down below. Thank you guys for your support as well on videos recently. It's been absolutely insane. Massively appreciate that as always. You guys are absolute heroes. If you've enjoyed this video though, feel free to slap a like on it, and of course subscribe if you are new to the channel. You can also follow me on social media. It is at @theofficialfng on Twitter and on Insta. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.